Hello there, my name is Thomas O'Regan, and today I just wanted to speak about maintenance costs and repairs and CapEx costs that come with ownership of a property portfolio. Now, it may shock people or people that have shares or a stock portfolio or any sort of other asset that they invest in, that when they decide to invest in property, it shocks them that property has maintenance, wear and tear, and CapEx costs. And it's very, it's kind of almost funny to see sometimes that they don't expect or account for these costs. Now, yeah, the reality is property has a few components, or two main components. One is the land component, and two is the building component. Now, obviously, land is not depreciable. It doesn't get smaller as time goes on, or it doesn't diminish in value, but the building component does. And there's, I guess, I'm going to break that down a little bit more. There's actually two parts of the building component, and one part is appreciable. It means it goes up in value, and another part is depreciable. Now, what I mean by that is the actual cost of the materials to build the property are appreciating in value as time goes on. To demonstrate what I mean by that is, as time goes on, inflation occurs, and the cost of the labor to build the property or the building goes up in value. The materials also go up in value. The concrete, the bricks, the cement, the copper pipe, the steel pipe, the plastic pipe, the whole thing associated with labor and materials go up in value. But what depreciates in a building is the actual, the original bricks, I guess, or the original copper, because it has a lifetime, it has a life expectancy, and you can either get a longer life expectancy out of these things or a shorter life expectancy out of these things than you would otherwise expect. Most things in property have a life time for anywhere from 1 year to 100 years. And the thing about it is, a lot of buildings have like a 40-year lifetime. That's their lifetime. But a lot of buildings are actually far older than 40 years. A lot of buildings are 100 years old, 200 years old, 300 years, 400 years old. So they've grown far beyond their value, and they do actually still hold value because, when I say a building has a 40-year lifetime, that means the asset can be depreciated for 40 years, and after the 40-year timeline, that asset no longer holds any value to be depreciated against. But the building itself still holds value because you can still live in it and you can still use it as property. Okay, it doesn't just disintegrate to rubble, and people don't just say, hey, this building's 40 years old now, let's get out and not use it for what its purpose was meant for anymore, it's very interesting. But basically, I like to buy buildings, I like to buy properties that are below replacement cost, and what that means is the use of the building, if it still functions for its use, whether that is a rental property or a commercial retail property or a shopping mall, if it still functions for its use, I like to buy it below what it would cost to replace that asset, and substantially below what it would cost to replace that asset, because the reality is it still can be used to generate as much money as that asset would produce otherwise if it was a brand new asset. So basically, an example might be you have a rental property, or you have an apartment, and the apartment it would cost to build one next door, like for like of the apartment you're buying, it would cost $550,000. But you are buying the older apartment that has already been built maybe 10 years ago for $300,000. So I would call that buying it below replacement cost. Now, what is the difference between these two properties? Well, they are both used to generate rental income. One might get a little bit more rental income because it's newer, and the other one might get a little bit less. But if you understand maths, you can work out that from a cash flow point and from an asset appreciation point, one investment is better and the other one isn't, depending on price and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully this video has been helpful to give you a bit more context around buildings and depreciation in buildings, and why I like to buy buildings that are older versus newer, because in that example, one building was 10 years old, one was brand new, but the 10-year-old building has 30 more years that it can be depreciated against, and be after that 30 years, that building may still be standing for another 100 or even more years before it is got to the point where it can no longer be used to generate income as a cash flow source to offset the price that you've paid for buying that inflationary asset, which is a property. See you guys next time. Bye.